Hello, everyone. And yes, I am Matt Collins-Jones, and this is a presentation on extending Dynamics 365/CDS/Microsoft Dataflex Pro. Quickly updating that slide after last week's announcement, Inspire. And we're going to extend it using the Power Platform, not traditional style dev in terms of C# and JavaScript and all those sorts of things. So let's give a little introduction to me. So I'm Matt Collins-Jones. If you don't know me, I am a senior D365 CE/Power Platform consultant. I work for a company called TSG in the UK. We have offices all around the UK. We do various things from CE to Office 365, loads of security stuff, firewalls, infrastructure, everything. You name it, we do it. I've been working with what was previously known as Dynamics CRM for about 9+ years now. I started as an end user, so probably where a lot of people maybe on this call started from or still are. So end user of CRM, then moved into sort of system admin type role to customize the system and system customizer before making the jump over to TSG, where I became a consultant. I have 14, I've worked with on-premise and online. I've done various things, integrations, extend. I've worked with developers. I've worked with consultants. I've worked with project managers. I've worked with everything. I have over 14 exams passes on the Dynamics or Power Platform. Big exam guy me. So if you want to talk exams, just send me a message after this. We can talk all the best exams. I'm a D365 UG UK Manchester Committee member. So if you like this meeting today, you should definitely come to the one on Wednesday night that me and Joe are hosting. Shameless self-promotion, but we have two fantastic talks from Ian Bourne and Paddy Freefall on Paddy Byrne on various things. So you should definitely check that out. And I am a cat dad, so that is me on the left, and that is little Ted on the right. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm quite prolific on Twitter at the moment, at D365Geek. Feel free to send me all the messages and everything during this presentation. So what are we going to be talking about today? So we're going to be talking about Power Platform. I know most people on this call probably already know what the Power Platform is. I just think it's really important to understand what it is and where it sits inside of this Microsoft ecosystem. So I'll be going over that. I'll be then talking about empowering citizen developers. I'll be talking about how Canvas apps can extend model-driven apps. I'll be showing you Power Automate a little bit, as Matt kind of alluded to at the start of this call. I do quite like Power Automate, and I have a video or two on my YouTube channel about Power Automate. There's only a small flow, so don't worry. And then I'll be doing a summary. So the first thing I want to do before I get started, if you could just drop into a chat what sort of job role you're in. If you are a consultant, if you're a developer, end user, system admin, just some gauge of where we are kind of sitting in your job roles. The reason I'm asking for this is because I made this joke last time I presented this presentation, which is I am not a developer. This is not a developer talk. If you are a developer and you disagree with what I'm saying, please don't throw things at me. It's really hard to throw things because it is kind of through the medium of the internet now, but still, let's have a discussion, keep an open mind until we get to the end. So I've got a lot of consultants, a lot of developers in here, so probably a good mix for this talk, and that's actually really important. So without further ado, the Microsoft Power Platform. So if you've all seen this slide, this has been updated. Hey, look, Dataflex Pro. I spelled it right and everything. So this is the Microsoft Power Platform. So it's the low-code platform that spans across Office 365, Dynamics 365, Azure, and standalone applications. And each aspect of the Power Platform are, other than Power Virtual Agent, they're kind of data source agnostic. Your Power BI is your business intelligence, interpreting your data and what it means. Your Power Apps, in terms of Canvas or model-driven, is more your user experience or your customer experience, your UI that you are shaping around whatever data that you have. Your Power Automate is your workflow automation, so the automation of all the different things that you've that you need to automate and things like that. And Power Virtual Agent is the chatbot, is the future that Microsoft see. They're pushing the chatbot, they're pushing AI quite a bit at the moment. It's really cool. And previously, Power Virtual Agent only really wrote things back to your CDS instance. And it was good on the roadmap this morning that we heard that Power Virtual Agent will write things to Dataflex as well as Dataflex Pro. Meaning you don't just need a CDS or a Dynamics 365 instance to be able to use it properly. So that's really good news. Underneath the Power Platform, you have your things, you have your data connectors. So your data connectors are how you connect into your data. So whether your data is in SQL, whether it is in CDS, whether it is in SharePoint, but don't put relational data in SharePoint, it's not a relational database. Whatever it is, we can connect that data together. Me and Matt were talking at the start of this call about different APIs that you can create connectors to. So you can create a connector to something that doesn't currently have a connector that is provided to you through Power Apps or through Power Automate or through Power BI and connect your data in that way. You do have Dataflex Pro, previously known as CDS, previously known as CDS 1.0, previously known as Dynamics 365, formerly known as CRM, formerly known as XRM, all these different names for the same thing, essentially. But Dataflex Pro being a relational database with, loads of great benefits, including a self-referential API and security and field level security and, entity creation and customization, so many great things. So all of these things together with AI kind of build the Power Platform, and the ones at the bottom basically just show you how you can really utilize this data. So enough about that. So this talk is about empowering citizen developers in a way. So these are people that aren't your traditional developers. They don't write lines of code in Visual Studio. They don't compile things. They don't do all these things that a typical developer does. A citizen developer is more of a no-code, low-code solution. So I would always class myself as a citizen developer when I was learning Dynamics CRM as it was, because I was basically coming up with ways to create solutions that didn't require me to go to a developer. So I said at the start of this call, I started off as an end user. The company I worked for had a CRM system, which was their internal system, which was a business critical system, but with absolutely no support contract from a partner or anyone at all. So it was me with no training being told, hey, can you go automate this thing, or can you make it do this other stuff? So I have that evolution of a citizen developer in my mind of what I am. But now with the Power Platform, we have more low code, no code, or someone else's code tools to be able to do a lot of these things. So we have 500 million apps that need to be created by 2023, according to Microsoft. This was a statistic that they brought out in Inspire. And as we've probably realized from this COVID pandemic, this is more important now than ever, that we have these applications that can do things like monitoring people's, going back to work, monitoring levels of people in offices, tracking viruses, tracking people. This is really important, and getting more people to build more applications is really what we need. And Microsoft also said there's 2.5 million citizen developers currently using the Power Platform. I don't think that's just citizen developers. I think that's kind of everyone using it. You don't really need to just be called a citizen developer to use the Power Platform, the low-code tools, which is what I'm going to go through today. And then we have this idea of less code, more power. So this was, I think, coined by someone at Microsoft. John Levesque made this, or John Levesque's fiance made this awesome logo about the Power Platform, how we can do more with less. We can build more with less code now more than ever. So tell me why. So why am I talking to you today about extending Dynamics 365 using the Power Platform? I'm a developer. I like writing code. It's what I do day in, day out. I know code. Dynamics has got a great API, a great SDK. Why do I need to look at the Power Platform as an option for extending? Well, the real answer is that we have the technology. Now, if you go back to when Dynamics was first starting out, you had version 1, 1.2, and then you had version 3. Version 3 was the real start of their customizing journey and why Dynamics really became a platform that people built on. Version 3 gave you the ability to start creating your customizations properly and gave you the ability for callouts. So what we term today as sort of plugins, that was created in version 3. Since then, there have been major updates. We've had breakthroughs in like the workflow engine, business rules, calculated fields. As Microsoft have implemented these technologies for us, we then have the ability to use them and we rely less on code. And this is just an evolution of that. Since I think 2015 or 2013 was the introduction of synchronous flows. I think 2013 was the introduction of like business rules and stuff like that. We've not seen great leaps forward in terms of being able to customize and really create something cool in the system. But Microsoft has switched their efforts towards Power Apps, Canvas apps, Power Automate to deliver those tools in just a slightly different way. So I really like this. This was on a promotional video for Power Automate, and it was unlock human potential at an enterprise scale. Now I could sit here and I could tell you all the uplifting stories of people like Keith Watling and the Summit, people that were bus drivers or security workers or any other job that isn't IT, and then suddenly get thrust into IT because they built a revolutionary app. But it's not just about them. It's about everyone. We have the ability to build enterprise level systems quickly and easily. Think about how fast Microsoft got that first COVID tracker app out to the UK government. It was like weeks or like a week or two. I just saw something from the Japanese government that they managed to create their app that sends money and sends masks and resources to people that have COVID-19, and they developed that from start to finish, I think, in less than 2 weeks. So this is what we get when we are faced with a crisis, and Microsoft are giving us the tools to do this. So enough about me rambling on at my slides. Let's show you something beneficial. So this scenario that we're going to go through today, we've got a small business that wants to convert costings based on exchange rates. So they may work inside of Europe, but they send things out to different places around the world, and they need to be able to translate and change the cost of the things that they're selling based on the local exchange rates. And they also need to translate the text into local languages. So before we start, I saw a great talk by Joe Griffin. He did a fantastic talk on the pricing engine inside Dynamics. So if you don't know, you can switch off the pricing engine, the default pricing engine inside Dynamics, and create your own pricing engine, which is great that they give you this ability. But as he was going through it, he kind of said something to me, which was that all the pricing engines, they have like you need 4 plugins per thing. So per quote, per order, per opportunity, and per invoice. You need 4 calls to the system to be able to do something. You need to be able to recalculate things, you need to be able to create things, you need to be able to delete things, you need to be able to update stuff. So that is already 12 plugins that you need to create if you want to create a custom pricing engine. And I've done it with no plugins. So let's take a look at it. So the first demo I'm going to go through is I'm going to show you how Canvas apps can extend model-driven apps. So switch over to the screen. So this is a Canvas app embedded into a model-driven app. So this is a quote product. Now, one of my pet peeves with quote products and with the product system inside Dynamics is that you can't access the products from quote product. If anyone's ever worked with products and quote products, it's a really annoying thing, or even opportunity products. You can't interact with the parent, you can't update the relationships, you can't basically do anything. So what we want to do is we want to bring through certain information from the product record into this record, or we want to do something else. So using Canvas apps, we can do that sort of thing. But that's not what we're going to show. It's just a pet peeve. So this is a Canvas app on the right. It was made for Scottish Summit, so that's the Scottish flag up on the right. Please ignore that. And we built this Canvas app, which has just got a few different controls on. So we've got a selector for language, we've got the translated text. We've got another drop down for currency. We have a button to convert currency, and we also have 3 buttons here: update, save and close, and override price. So what I can do here is this, everything is based in euros, I think, and we need to convert it to, say, another currency. So I convert our currency from euros to United States dollars, hit the convert button. It's going to go off and do something. It's going to bring back the exchange rate of what it is today, and it's going to give me a new price here. So that's one part of it. Next thing I can do is I can update the record with some of this data straight from inside here. So say I'm having to send this to I don't know, South Africa, for instance. I can change to South Africa and then it's going to translate some text into Afrikaans, and I can do that on the fly in a Canvas app and then write that back to the model-driven app, or I can change it to Finnish, for instance. And as soon as I do this, I can just hit, do you know what, I'm going to update this to Finnish, and I'm just going to hit update record. The update record is trying to instantly put these things in here. So it's trying to convert the price, it's trying to give me the currency code, it's trying to give me the exchange rate today, it's trying to tell me when I calculated the exchange rate from me pressing that button, it's going to change that, and it's going to translate the text, all from a Canvas app with very little code. And I'll show you the code in a few minutes. But we can do other things as well. So we can say override the price. So this is what I was talking about before in terms of needing 12 plugins previously. We don't need 12 plugins. There is a button that says pricing, and we can just hit that button and change it to override pricing. So if I hit override price now, what that's going to do is that's going to override that, and then it's going to update the amounts here once it's had to think about it. It's going to update the amounts here based on what I've just put in. So it's going to take the unit price and it's going to combine, times it, multiply it by the exchange rate, and it's going to change that extended amount. So I am on the fly converting things and overwriting stuff inside Dynamics with a Canvas app. I've worked with companies that have tried to make really complex calculation engines. The most control I've ever had without needing to revert to C# is using this. So this is it interacting as well, as Matt's kind of pointing out. So there are a couple of things that we can do here to point out and to do things. So we also have the ability to save and close. We can actually save and close this record, and it's going to navigate away from the screen and go back to my quote screen, because we have that control now that Microsoft have given us. So it's a really cool feature that we can do all these cool things using a Canvas app that we previously can't do. So I'm just going to dig into the code a little bit and show you that it's not as scary as you may think. So this is my Canvas app, and I'll zoom in so it's nice and big. And as you can see, there's nothing hidden behind the scenes. It's just a few different things. So this is a lookup to a language table in my Dynamics instance. This is just a field. This is how we translate the text, and we'll go on to the currency stuff later. But to translate the text, I've used a free. Try and collapse this a bit more. There we go. I just set up an Azure Cognitive Service. I went into Azure. I said, hey, I want to set up a Microsoft Translate Cognitive Service. Can you do that? And they went, yeah, sure. So I went through it all, clicked all the buttons. It's relatively straightforward, and they give you a certain number of calls for free in terms of your messages back and forth. I think it's like 1,000 or something a month, which was more than adequate for my demo, but charges do apply if you need to do this at a bit more of an enterprise level scale. And then there's just a single line of text. So I've got a single line of text, a single line of code, sorry, that converts the input into a different language. I don't know of any other services, any C# code or any other APIs where I could just put in a single line of text and automatically convert some language for me. There probably exists, but I just think that's incredible. I can do this having no developer experience. I can just say, okay, Microsoft Translate, we're going to call that function. We're just trying to pass in some data. We're going to look up which language from this selector. We're going to pass that language code to the selector, and then it's going to return me the language. And that's it. That is translating text into other languages using a single line of code. So it's not big, it's not scary, it's nothing to be worried about. The update record. So we're using a patch statement in this. There's different ways you can do this. I chose to use a patch statement, but it's not very big and scary. All we're doing is we're pointing it to a table. We're using this model-driven form integration, which is a new control that Microsoft gave us when they enabled Canvas app embedding into model-driven apps. Although this is likely to change now that we've got the ability to actually embed Canvas apps directly into Dynamics at some point, coming in the latest update. And yeah, so we can just look up the table. We look up what we're looking at right now, and then we patch in some details. So we're just taking that additional cost that was in a field, the exchange rate today, the translated text, the exchange rate calculated today. That's just saying get today's date and put it in there. And then we're taking the currency code. So all this is me updating a record through code, but in 6 lines. And then we just save the form. So as soon as this runs and updates it, we just save the form, and that's it saved. That's the data there. So again, it's nothing scary, and this is what I'm trying to get through, is that I always think of doing things with code being a really scary thing, but it's not that scary. So it's a really cool use of it. The save and close, all that's different in terms of this is we do something different. We save the form, but then we navigate to a different form. So it's another control that Microsoft gave us, another function that we have using this model-driven form integration to just navigate it back to a form. And you can navigate back to a form, to a view. So there's loads of great things you can do with this, and Microsoft are keep updating these in various ways. And then we have the override price, and the override price again is exactly the same. The only difference is we're going to do this. We're going to set the price override to true. So everything else is staying the same. So we can still build the custom calculator. We can still build all these things. We're just doing this in a slightly different way. And the new unit price is literally just a calculation. It's just if it's blank, then that's fine. Else we're going to take the price per unit and then combine and then multiply it by the exchange rate, and that's it. So again, that's a custom engine sort of. It's not full. It's not enterprise level. I would not deploy this to a customer, but at least it gets my point across that you can build something like this really simply. One of my latest projects is building a massive custom calculator for a customer, and the data is going to be stored in CDS. I'm doing it all through a Canvas app because I have more control over it, and I can build it a lot quicker than it would take a developer to build it, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary. So yes, that's the Canvas app, and then we get onto the convert button. So I think I saw a question about how we're dealing with the exchange rate thing. We're actually calling a flow for this. So I'm going to go over that in a minute. I just want to go back through some of my slides to show you what we've kind of covered here in terms of a Canvas app. So far, so good. So Canvas apps. So when you embed a Canvas app into a model-driven app, you get this additional control, the model-driven form integration. This is responsible for bringing the form context data into your Canvas app, meaning that anything that is on that quote product screen, I can interact with and I can pull things with and I can write the data back to that form because it knows what it is. So that's what makes it really easy and really quick to do things, because we know where it is already. We don't need to look up a record based on another thing that we're passing in and then do a filter and find and all these things. We can just say, right, the form that I'm on, push, and we're done. These are some of the additional actions we've got as well. So we've got navigate to main form, which is what I showed you. We can navigate to view. We can open a quick create form. So we can actually say, OK, I need to add this, open the quick create form, and it pops out from the right. We can also refresh the form and save the form, which I've showed as well. So how do we do this? So if you aren't familiar with this, the way to do this is you have to go to the classic form editor at the moment. You have to find a field on the classic form editor and you have to add the control. I think the control is only available on strings. It was available on subgrids at some point, but they're not very good to use, so you need to put on a string. The thing I would say is that you need to put it on a string that will always contain data. So make sure that because it basically, if it doesn't contain data, it won't load. So what I usually do is I put a duplicate field on the form, and I just make it load off that duplicate field. So quote ID, for instance, you get someone to put in a quote ID, it then loads the form up. Then you select the field, you add control, and then you click on customize, and then you get all this. So you add the additional control here, and then you click customize, and that'll load your Canvas app maker. You build your app, you save it, and then it'll save all your details back to this bit here. You can overwrite this if you want and change the app, and there are a few issues with sort of solutions and stuff like that. But as long as you read up and you know what you're doing, it's all good. And then you get something like this. You get a model-driven app with a Canvas app that can be used to do additional calculations without needing to revert to JavaScript, without needing to revert to C# first. I built all this. I think I built this whole demo in the space of like a couple of days. That was me relearning some parts of Canvas apps and relearning it, because I'd initially done this about a year or so ago. But it's really cool and really easy. So you can call services, you can call the translate service and have that put in, and you can turbocharge this all with your AI services and stuff like that. And you can do calculations. You can do so much more that you can't do with like calculated fields or business rules or workflows, all in a model-driven app. So I thought this was a really great use for it. So I could take this text, put it on here, and then that goes on a form and stuff like that. I can send the language, the currency rates through and see where we're sending currencies a lot, which countries we're converting things into a lot, and making sure the exchange rates are good for us. So, and then just some code snippets. So this was my code that I showed you of how to just update a product. So again, it's not scary. It's just table, record, fields, field values. That's it. So ignore the braces and the brackets. It's all good. And then the same thing, small one line of code for getting, like passing in text from one language and converting it to another. So then there was a question about the Power Automate and about the convert, and the convert runs a Power Automate flow, and that's what it does. So let's look at the flow. This is my flow, and this is my flow in 4 steps. So the first step is when I call it from Power Apps, so that's where that button comes in. The second step is I'm just going to talk to a free API. So I'm just sending a GET request to datafixer.io, which is a free API that has currency rates for today. There is a paid version of this API that you can get that will allow you to specify a currency in. I did not purchase it for this demo, which is why I was talking about things being in euros, because euros is the base currency for it. But you can pay for it, or you can find another API, and you can pass in details of your default currency and then return your target currency, and then it returns it back to you. And again, there's nothing hidden in here. I've literally said get and then an API key with a URL. I'm not doing any funky things. I'm not writing any code here. I'm just saying, hey, go get this. And it's going to return all of that in a JSON array to me. So then I need to parse the JSON. Shameless plug, I have a great tip on parsing JSON. It's usually just you run the flow first and then let it fail, and then you get the JSON body, and then you just copy it in and let this generate from sample and sample it in here, and then it just generates the schema for you. So it's really easy. So all we're doing is just saying, right, whatever this returns back here, parse it, give me the information in a way that I can understand, and then just send that back to Power Automate for me. So it sends it back to Power Automate. I then, in here, you may have noticed this if you were eagle-eyed, I actually create a collection. So a collection is just kind of like a local table. And I'm just saying, right, when I press this button, get rid of all the data in the table, then recreate the table called this, and then recreate it with all the data that I'm just pulling back. So all I've done is said, hey, give me the currencies. They send me the currencies, and I create a table with the currencies today, like what that currency rate is. So I do that, and then that gives me the exchange rate, which is just, again, this is just a switch, and this is just finding the first currency in that collection where the rate equals GBP or USD or CAD or JPY. So I basically just say, right, whatever I've selected, just give me that first instance of it, and that's easy enough. And then the new unit price, again, is just converting it to whatever is in that label here. So that's it. That's a real-time API call to go and get the currency of what it is today, right now, using a free API. You may want to look at a paid-for API if you are using something a bit more enterprise, but for purposes of this demo, that was absolutely fine for me. So yeah, I've converted things into different languages using a single line of text, and I've gotten currency rates with 4 steps in a flow. So it's really, really simple. So let's kind of go through that a little bit. So again, we've got 4 steps. We are getting the data. I love how I always blur out this key, but then I show you the key in my demo anyway. You can use the key, it doesn't matter. You just sign up for the site and it'll just give you a key, so you can use that. So all I'm doing is saying, right, can you just send me all this data? And they go, yep, and they send it back to you. Then all we do is parse it to make it into the JSON that we'll understand, which is great, from that body, and then we send that back to Power Apps, and then Power Apps puts it into that table for us, so it's nice and easy. So we're getting towards the end. I've actually gone through it a lot quicker than I did last time, so that's good. So here's the idea, is that we should be using all the tools of the Power Platform. We shouldn't just be relying on what we've known because that's what we're used to. We should be thinking about, hey, there's a new tool that does exactly what I need. Let's have a look into it. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be able to do these things, and I'm not saying that we should all just dump all our C# and just go straight into Power Platform and developing here. That's not what it is, but it is being aware of the current developments and what we are using. We need to empower everyday developers to be autonomous. So there was a great talk earlier about the Center of Excellence. It's all about empowering your users to take control and to start building applications and start building flows that will help them to be autonomous from IT a little bit and stop relying on other people. If you have access to the data in your system, then you can build an app on that data to then do something. It's kind of like when you teach people how to use an advanced find to create a view in Dynamics. This is just the next level of it. They always describe Canvas apps as being the marriage between PowerPoint and Excel. It's a canvas where you can paint and you can create everything pixel perfect way, but then has Excel-like formula. As I said, I'm not a developer. I've managed to do all these things really, really simply. We need to rethink about our design decisions and solution architecture. As we're getting these new technologies like Dataflex coming into Teams and being able to build things in there, we need to rethink about what we are doing in terms of our solution architecture, because it may be that a CDS environment is no longer Dataflex Pro environment is no longer going to be the correct place for it. Maybe we can put it into Dataflex inside of Teams. We need to reduce our technical debt. I come from a support background. Whenever developers made developer-y plugins and it went wrong, I couldn't fix it. I'd have to request a developer to look at it, and then developers' lead time is like 2 to 4 weeks, which is not great for me. It's not great for the customer. So, these sorts of things are not always the best way to do it. Whereas if you have something that you can look at least you can come up with an idea and talk to someone about it anyway. But the most important part of all of this talk, and this is what I was alluding to the whole way, is use the best tool for the job. Don't use a tool because it's new and shiny, and don't use a tool because it's the only thing you know. Analyze both, find out what will give you the most value, find out what will be the best for the solution that you're working on, and use it. It's not exactly the low code, pro code, unite statement that Scott Giroux and Sarah Lagerquist, say, but it's my statement, is use the best tool for the job. Sometimes a developer is the best tool. A developer building a plugin is the best tool for a job. But we are getting all of these new things through. So we've got Canvas apps, we've got the PCF, the Power Apps Control framework that now allows us to do really cool things with components and views and all these things. So why would you revert to trying to hack at the DOM when you can actually use a PCF control and do exactly what you want? All of these things are trying to bring more and more tools to us. So make sure you're using them, make sure you're analyzing which one the best for the job is. And with that, a little bit earlier than planned, that is my presentation. So I'm free to take any questions. Here are all my details if you want them. I do have a YouTube channel, which I release daily Power Automate videos on at the moment. So feel free to check that out. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's my email, my Twitter, and everything else. So yeah, that's how you can connect with me. So questions? Oh yeah.
Go on, you've got a question. Go on. You've seen it. I'll let you read it.
Yeah. So hi Sheena. Does the embedded Canvas apps render on a new form? Is it required to configure the display logic? So it does render on a form. Oops. Where are we? So the problem with a Canvas app on a form is that you need to create the form first. So I don't have a button in here, but if I were to try and create a quote product, which I wonder if I can do through here, because there's no button in there. But basically, the restriction on a Canvas app is it'll only load when you create the record and when the field that you specify contains data. And that's the key there, is that the field that you set as the control for it, it needs to contain data for it to load. If it doesn't contain data, it never loads, just like my advanced find right now. I was trying to show you that. There's no button to actually create a new quote product from there. But if I move that for a second, open that, I'll wait for that to load. If I try to add a new product, it's just going to give me the quick create, I think. Yeah, it does. But I can add a new product into here, pineapple on pizza, because that's something that everyone should eat. Don't at me. And then the top one. And then basically, I think I'm using, I can't remember what field I'm using, but I'm using some field. Yeah, try. I'm using some field on here that just always contains data, and therefore I can do stuff. Can I? No, I cannot add a new product through here. Never mind. But yeah, the field just needs to contain data. So you put it on the form, you configure it like I showed in the slides, and then as long as it contains data, when it loads up, it'll work. So I'm just going back through to see if there's any other questions. Did I answer your question, Ibo, sort of on the exchange rate? Okay.
Yeah, yes, you did, Matt. Thanks.
Bro. No worries. Really smart way of using embedded Canvas apps. You don't have to create custom tables in Dynamics to store in data, etc. Exactly. It's really cool. So yeah, it's one thing that I've really liked is really digging into Canvas apps and seeing where the potential is. I think a lot of people took Canvas apps as being either a tool that you can make games on, or something that just reads from SharePoint lists all the time. But when you actually think about how they can be used with CDS and all the other stuff in there, or Dataflex Pro, they really come alive, and there's a lot of potential for it. So. Any other questions?
Well, we'll stick about for a bit anyway. Before everybody goes, I would just like to ask people to take a second to unmute their mics, just give Matt a round of applause, say thank you. But then if there's any more questions, we'll still stick about. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Matt.
No worries.
I liked what it was doing. So I was helping somebody do something similar a while ago, but they were doing using the actual currency entity in CE World, and then they were using a flow to just update that every sort of 6 hours with the latest and greatest exchange rate.
Yeah.
But I just the reliance on Power Automate or a flow also. I like the fact that Canvas apps you press a button and you get the instant feedback, whereas you just got to sort of hope that a flow is running behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, exactly. I remember I sat in a talk with George. I can never pronounce his name properly. George from Serum Tip of the Day.
Yeah.
George Dubinsky. Yeah.
Dubinsky.
Yeah, that was butchered. I sat in a talk from him where he was talking about creating a plugin or an API or something that goes off and polls it all the time. And I was just sat there thinking I could never build that. And then like a year later, I've built this using Power Automate. So it's interesting how times change and how the technology moves to be able to give you the ability to do a load of these things.
But without adding complexity, like, it doesn't feel like it's any harder. That's the joy of it, I think. Yeah,
and that I make the joke about like not throwing things at the start of this, because I always feel like developers are very much, I'm set in my ways. I will never consider your low-code preposterous solution. But it's good to actually see that more and more developers are now taking on board the fact that they have these tools and can do these things, as well as citizen developers. Is trying to bring in those two together to say, right, okay, what do we do and how do we do it in a sustainable enterprise way, so that we're not just running around like headless chickens building stuff which isn't GDPR compliant and isn't going to work and everything else. So
absolutely. I think the low code stuff just scared all the developers, and instead it makes them now refocus their development into other areas where they now need it.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I still have access to developers. I can still say, hey, can I get a developer because I need them to build this plugin for me when I think it's the right solution and when they agree it's the right solution. But sometimes it's kind of like, is there really can I do this, or can I do this another way? So my first foray into this was a customer wanted to create a case, and they'd populate in an account and a contact, but the account and the contact were not going to be related to each other because the account and the contact were specifying different things. So it was like a contact was like an end user that bought something, and the account was like the retailer that sold them the thing, but it all gets kind of traced back. And I was like, how do I need to create a connection, I need to do these things. And they wanted me to create the connection, but then they wanted it to happen automatically, and they didn't want to create it themselves. And then they wanted it to retrospectively run over all like 1,000 of their cases. And I sat there and I was like, well, I'm going to need a developer to write a plugin, and then I'm going to need to find a way to trigger the plugin across all the other records and use like a bulk workflow updater and all these other things. And then I just kind of, I think it was a colleague of mine suggested Power Automate or Flow at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure that can do that. And that just kind of started my journey, and I've just not stopped just building things in flows. So did Alison have a hand up there for a minute? Or she left?
I'm going to guess she pressed the wrong button. Oh, I was trying to high five.
No, I did actually. Well, all of those.
Okay.
All of those apply.
Smash the keyboard.
I was just going to say, for any devs on the call, the whole low code versus no code and pro code debate is an interesting one. And I did a session with Keith Watling and Chris Huntingford, where we pointed out that Keith uses an analogy that's fantastic, which is if he wants to redecorate his bathroom, he can go and buy paint, and he can go and buy a new toilet and stuff like that. But he doesn't have a factory that makes paint, and he doesn't have a factory that makes the plumbing to put his toilet in. And that's what the developers do, is they are the factory that make all the little bits, because the low code and no code guys can't do any of that stuff unless the devs have done their bit to build these little things. The analogy I used is if you're building a Millennium Falcon out of Lego, like, you know, you have to have specialist molded parts for guns and turrets and things like that, right? Which, you know, I don't have an injection molding plant. I need someone to make those for me so I can put the Millennium Falcon together. So, like, you know, any devs out there that are worried that they're going to be out of work because of the low or no code revolution, it's not going to happen. We still need loads of people to build all of the stuff so that we can do what we want to do. It's a tool of enablement. That was just my 5 pence I was chucking in there.
Yeah, right tool for the right job.
Yeah, exactly that.
Someone's got to write the tools. Someone's got to write the no code to work.
Someone's got to write that XRM toolbox plugin tool so I can do the other stuff.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Right. Well, hang on. Sorry. No, yeah, go on. You're good. I just forgot to do something.
Okay. I was just going to say, I'm actually really interested in how many people are writing Canvas apps and embedding them into Dynamics or CDS or Microsoft Dataflex Pro, and what the use cases are. I always come back to calculators. Calculators are one of the biggest, most complex things. I've known customers that have tried to build calculators before and have just failed. They've tried to replace the inbuilt pricing engine and it's been a mess. And you know, it's our go-to solution now for building a custom calculator is a Canvas app, because we just have so much control over everything. But I've seen some other Canvas apps that do, I think Chris had one that was like a car viewer thing, and there's loads of other things. So I am interested if anyone on the call has built a Canvas app to embed into a model-driven app before, or are thinking about it, what sort of use case you guys will be using it for, or what examples you've got.
I've got one coming up against or about to start working on, which is around, so the customer does a lot of opportunity, it's not basically opportunity management, but originally we replaced the close opportunity form with a dialogue, which, because they wasn't quite as simple as just closing, they had a little bunch of processes once something closed. So it's looking at replacing those dialogues effectively with the embedded Canvas app. So we're just sort of going through the process of going through the dialogues and working out exactly which ones to replace them with, and kind of the best way to do it. So I've also just been looking at things like kind of launching forms off an existing record which only has a Canvas app in it. So trying to kind of mimic that dialogue feel a bit, but without kind of doing it in a Canvas app. And I think, for me, like, what I find really interesting is looking at embedded Canvas apps and thinking about old projects where we've written code, actually going, we probably could have done that with a Canvas app. It's like 2 or 3 years ago when I'm doing a risk assessment kind of, which was a whole bunch of custom code driven off Dynamics data, but actually you could have done that relatively easily now within Canvas apps. So
if you get a chance, you should watch the Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour from last week, I think it was. There's someone on there called Clarissa, and she made an infinity form, which isn't to do with Marvel, although I really hoped it was. But it was using a gallery to dynamically show and hide fields for like risk assessments and stuff.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't for risk assessments, but that's what I kind of took from it, is that the problem with stuff like that is you get asked all these questions and you have to have like 50 or 100, or, I've had a customer with like, I think it was 400 fields on a form where they may have to ask various questions. And that is much nicer in a Canvas app than it is in like a big JavaScript hide things inside of Dynamics and stuff. So
because also different questions will have different answer types and
exactly
checkbox or text